We lack what it means to be authentic. You're not an accident. There's always a significant look that defines a generation, and women especially will go through great lengths to feel and look the best version of themselves. But honestly, I often wonder if what we call the best versions of ourselves is just us continuing to put ourselves in a box that society wants us in. With social media especially, I feel like we're putting ourselves under a microscope constantly. Oftentimes, it's making us feel ugly about ourselves, and that's a lie that is being sold to us on a daily basis. We're all uniquely made, yet we're all looking the same. Why? With the increase in social media, there's been an increase in cosmetic procedures. Prior to social media, however, it was editorial and what we saw in magazines and the media. So let's rewind back to the 90s, and I'm starting here because one, it's a moment where I remember in time, having been a 90s child, and I feel it's where the media really had a strong presence, a strong hold on image, especially for women. So if we look back at the 90s, it was heroin chic, and that heroin chic bled into the early 2000s. Heroin chic, in case you don't know, is the term used to describe the look of the 90s, which was a very pale appearance, dark under-eye circles, and an androgynous drug-induced look. So the look of the 90s that was in was a very drug-inspired, drug-induced look. Yeah. And it was often associated with supermodel Kate Moss and photographer David Sorrenti. And when I think back about the 90s, when I think back about how the look was, oftentimes Kate Moss is the first one that comes to mind. She was very big during that time. If you don't know much about David Sorrenti, if you're interested, I would suggest looking him up because he, in his short lifespan, made quite an impact during that time. So the beauty standard back then was paper thin eyebrows. If you know, you know. I mean, at that time I was too young for paper thin eyebrows, but like I said, it bled into the early 2000s, and yeah, I was guilty of that. Paper thin eyebrows, matte makeup, and ultra thin bodies, which branded the term heroin chic. So it was a time for sure where women were being bullied, especially when it came to their bodies, and the media did not hold back any punches. When David Sorrenti passed away at the age of 20, like I said, he had a very short life, but he made quite an impact in the fashion and beauty industry during his short time alive. It's said that when he passed away, the idea of heroin chic also died with him. Like I said, it bled into the early 2000s, with the trend continuing to be extreme thinness, and the standard size goal was anywhere between a size 0 and 2. So if you were bigger than a size 2, sadly back then you were considered overweight, fat, unhealthy. It was very hard times. Low-rise jeans began to gain popularity during this time. Low-rise and crop tops, they were like the fashion standard. And low-rise back then was not the low-rise of today. What we see today is actually, I would say, more modest than what was back then. Back then, low-rise jeans left nothing to the imagination. They were incredibly low. Like, if you sat or bent down, those jeans were coming down with you. So where things kind of began to shift in the 2000s was a person looking healthy as opposed to looking sickly and drug-induced. It was still extremely thin. Extremely thin was still considered the standard, but tanned skin was now in. So extremely thin and looking healthy by having tanned skin, that was the goal. Photoshop was always known in the industry, but around this time is when it became, I would say, super common and notable for the public, and everyone was taking notice of the heavily edited photos in magazines, oftentimes making a celebrity look much thinner than what they actually were in real life. And shows like America's Next Top Model reinforced the need, the presence of being extremely thin if someone wanted to pursue such a career as that. I say all this to say because it was during this time, especially when many women felt like they could not gain weight. They did not want to gain weight. Any weight gained was seen as bad. It wasn't seen as healthy or good for them. And many developed eating disorders during this time. So for many millennial women, this was actually a very rough and traumatizing time because of how severe we looked at our bodies. When thinness was in, if someone wasn't naturally thin, that was considered ugly at the time. So making ourselves sick to appease people. This is what I'm saying. Like, it's so, ugh. So now going into the 2010s and 2020s, this is a pivotal moment where things really began to shift. It was during this time that Instagram started. It was released in 2010 of October, and this began to popularize the Instagram face. How many of you remember the Instagram face? Makeup was heavily contoured and baking was popular. Having brows precisely shaped and filled was in. No more super thin brows. So this was the time where people were starting to let their eyebrows grow. I think this was also the time where many were getting it, is it microblading, where you get your eyebrows tattooed on? I think that procedure was also gaining popularity during this time. So it shifted from extreme thinness to thick, bold, natural looking, heavily filled brows. And when I think of this in particular, the person who comes to mind is Cara Delevingne. Curvier body types was now in, which was a huge shift from the heroin chic and ultra thin bodies that we were accustomed to from the 90s. And it was during this time when the Kardashians became the standard in beauty, and the term Kardashian standard was coined. Every female, including some females who I knew personally, wanted a Kardashian body. They really wanted to look like a Kardashian. So Botox, and none of these procedures are new. We know this. Like, these things have been around and people were getting them done, but it was more known for like celebrities to get them done. So it was during this time where the public grew interest in getting these procedures done to try and look like their favorite celebrity. So Botox, fillers, fat freezing, also known as cold sculpting, were gaining popularity during this time. Brazilian butt lifts, aka BBLs, rose in popularity, with demand rising over 90% between 2015 through 2019. Thanks to celebrities like Kim Kardashian, Nicki Minaj, and Jennifer Lopez. These procedures that were gaining popularity were driven by social media and celebrity influence. So as we're in the mid 2020s, where time of filming this is 2026, it's been interesting to see how beauty standards have shifted throughout the years. We went from extreme thinness to accepting all body types and the whole body positivity movement. It's now the Instagram, TikTok face, plump lips, snatched jaw, and a no makeup look. It's constantly evolving. As women, for years, we've been harshly criticized by our looks, and we often let that define us. As women of the world, it's easy to fall into this idea that changing our appearance to please others will fulfill us and make us happier. We're looking at our outward appearances to find happiness and joy. But as women of Christ, it's important to remember that we are to be set apart and set an example of being women of God walking by faith. Yet even Christian women subject themselves to cosmetic procedures. I'm almost 40. I've never gotten any cosmetic procedures done. That's not to say that in the future I will never get them done. I don't think I personally will, but I don't know. And I'm not judging anyone or saying that you should never, but also knowing that we're made in the image of Christ, that should far surpass our wants to look a certain way because it's considered the new beauty standard, and accept that the one who made us is all that matters. He made us in his perfect image, and we know that he makes no mistakes. So we'll tell our friends and loved ones that they're perfect the way they are. They shouldn't change. They shouldn't go through with a cosmetic procedure if that's what they want. It's easier for us to tell others, yet it's so hard for us to believe that truth for ourselves. Whether you're a Christian or not, you're familiar with this. And it is what inspired this entire video. And it's Psalm 139 verse 14. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works, and I know this very well. 70% of young adult women and 60% of young adult men are unhappy with their bodies, according to psychology technology today. A study done by Padley in 2022 reported a surge in interest in cosmetic procedures to regain confidence as video conference had become the norm. We're influenced by influencers, celebrities, social media filters. I mean, who remembers the time where people were getting cosmetic procedures because they wanted to look like their Snapchat filters? It makes us question our appearance and our own unique beauty because we idolize them so much. And that is the problem right there, is the idolization that we give these people. They're people just like us, wanting to appear perfect, but perfect and beauty in the eye of the human is subjective to the viewer, whereas the creator of all creation, the creator of the heavens and the earth, sees the beauty of one's heart and not the vanity that we as society so heavily focus on. We've become a vanity-focused society, feeding us constant lies that we're not good enough or beautiful enough because we're not looking like an airbrushed model. But we're not meant to look like airbrushed models. When I think of extreme vanity, I also think of Tess Christian. In the early or mid 2000s, it was reported that she did not smile or laugh to prevent wrinkles, and she trained her face muscles to remain still since she was 10. Since she was 10. Imagine being a child saying, I'm going to not smile or laugh to train my face muscles so that I don't get wrinkles. Not even during the birth of her daughter, a joyous moment, did she show any emotion. The photo of her that is on the screen is somewhat recent, and she's now in her 50s, and she still again shows no emotions. And I ask you, looking at that photo, does it seem worth it? Teenager me thought how miserable when I read that article. Adult me still thinks how miserable, but now I think how sad. What must have she gone through at the age of 10 to make such a decision like that? So instead of embracing who we are, we're allowing society to dictate who we are. We're allowing society to dictate how we look, how we act, how we speak. We're craving individuality. We're craving authenticity, yet we're making changes to look the same, to speak with similar mannerisms, and we lack what it means to be authentic. So again, I want to repeat scripture. Psalm 139:14. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works, and I know this very well. This starts with praising God for his creation. And we know, like I said, that he makes no mistakes. He personally made you and me as we are. And he was very intentional with how he made us. You're not an accident. I'm not an accident. Our appearances are the way we are because God thought it's how we need it to be. And we know that the same God who created the heavens and the earth, the beauty that we constantly see, he makes no mistakes. From the BLB app, David Guzik says, it's not just that God knows everything, he knows me. It's not just that God is everywhere, he is everywhere with me. It's not just that God created everything, he created me. God knows everything about us. He knows our every movement, our mannerisms, how we sit, how we stand, how we speak, what's on our mind, every hair on our head. Everything he knows. From Bible Hub, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. This says, this acknowledges the intricate and intentional design of human beings by God. The term fearfully suggests a sense of awe and reverence, indicating that the creation of human life is a profound and sacred act. Wonderfully made highlights the complexity and beauty of God's creation, reflecting his wisdom and power. This aligns with the creation narrative in Genesis 1 verse 27, where humans are made in the image of God, underscoring their unique value and purpose. The phrase also connects to the New Testament, where believers are described as God's workmanship in Ephesians 2 verse 10. Let's shift our focus on how the perfect God who created the heavens and the earth created you and me exactly as we're meant to be, as we're meant to look, and as we're meant to act. I hope that this video served as an encouraging message. I hope that if you're struggling right now with something or you're not happy with your appearance, I really hope that the message came through, and that is that you were made perfect as you are. Don't let no one or society tell you otherwise. If someone you know needs to hear this message, please feel free to share it with them. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to watch this video. It truly means the world to me. I hope it encourages you, and I hope it encourages you to be bold in who you are. Have an amazing and beautiful day wherever you are, and I'll see you in the next one. God bless you.